Hi, my name is Gwen, and I forgot to talk to YouTube about the books I read this past month. It's not like I forgot, I was just kind of busy and overwhelmed by a couple of things, so I never got to mention all the books that I read. I'm not going to do star ratings because I'm kind of trying to push away from that and just say more about the enjoyment of the book for me. I feel like everyone has their own way of star ranking things that they love, and sometimes they just don't make sense to people, so I'm trying to veer away from it, making it more like, I super enjoyed this, to I don't recommend this at all, please never pick it up. And January was that type of month for me. It was all over the place. Some things were really good and some things were drastically bad. So let's talk about it. I'm going to roughly talk about the books in order as I read them during the month. However, I'm going to start with the series that I completed, which was the Earth and Skies trilogy by Rebecca Roanhorse. I both read Fevered Star and Mirrored Heavens. So let's talk about it because it didn't go the way that I thought it would. The highlights for this trilogy: the writing's fantastic. I really enjoyed the characters. I loved the world that we were in. I loved that originally at the start of the first book, it was denied that magic still even existed. And then by the end of the series, we were fully involved with having a magic system with gods. It was great. The part that I didn't love was the landing of the third book. It was bad, you guys. I do have to talk about a spoiler because if I don't talk about it, then it won't make sense. There's a point in which a battle is being threatened. War is happening between two countries. And I was expecting for that to be executed and us to fully see that. And unfortunately, we never did. And I think that's the disappointing thing about this trilogy that people talk about, is that the first book is so good that you're hoping that the rest of the series is that climactic, that epic. And so again, when that execution doesn't happen with the plot, it kind of falters and people get disappointed. I'd actually recommend this trilogy more to people who like romance. I feel like the romance was a lot heavier than usually high fantasy has involved, or epic fantasy. And I find that people who probably like romance would genuinely like the ending to this series more than the general fantasy lover. So if that sounds good to you, then I would recommend it to you. And if the disappointing part of this is like, oh, maybe I shouldn't pick it up, then I probably wouldn't pick up the trilogy. Though it was a good time. Like overall, I think my average was like 4.5 stars for all the books, so it was a good time. It's just, it didn't give the scope that I was hoping it would give. Okay, so after reading Fevered Star, I then picked up The Dispossessed by Ursala K. Le Guin. This was my first Le Guin story. I think it was a bit of an undertaking to start with this book, but I was reading it due to a recommendation of a friend. What I will say now, I cannot not think about this book anymore. It's almost on a daily basis at this point, especially with all of the shitty politics happening in the United States. This is constantly on my mind at the moment. So if you've never heard of The Dispossessed, the story is you're following the main character, Shevik, through his life and then also where he is present day as a physicist, and we are following him trying to figure out his hypothesis. What the book focuses on more through Shevik is how different government systems work. He is from a planet that focuses on anti-government, basically. It's kind of an anarchy system, and also the philosophy that no one is really special. He then goes to a planet that has more of a capitalistic and patriarchal system. There's also another country on that planet that has socialism. It really is the discussion of him interacting with these three government systems and how it affects him over time, whether it was during his years of growing up on his own planet versus the time that he is on the other planet trying to figure out his science stuff. This is an academic read. After reading this book, I personally went to investigate a little bit more about Le Guin and her backstory, plus what she was trying to argue in this book. There's a lot of instances that I think any person could go more in depth into and say, this is what I read when I was reading this paragraph, and then the influence of this other thing that happens later on in the chapter, and then when he was little, this feels like an influence. There's so many layers to this small little book, and I was overwhelmed at first when I did read it, but now reflecting on it after a month, it was such a good book, and I hope to pick up more of Le Guin's stories soon. But for now, I'm just going to say I highly recommend people read this book. The next book that I read was The Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erikson. This is part of my reread challenge for the year. You can learn all about my thoughts in the video that I posted last week, which was my reading vlog for this book. Overall, had a great time, loved picking this back up again, and I can't wait to get to Dead House Gates in February. Also, I should mention, if you have not read The Malazan Book of the Fallen, you should read it, especially if you're a huge fantasy nerd. The next book I read was Monstrilio, and I had a fantastic time reading this book. This is a horror story focusing on grief and the loss of a child, and how a group of adults, specifically two parents and a close friend, deal with the aftermath of that. And I didn't realize how it was going to be written, but I really truly loved it, which was we got sections from each of the four perspectives, with Monstrilio being one of them. I didn't love the ending, but I understood why the ending happened, so that's why I didn't give it like the highest praise, but it's still a really good book, and it got me out of my reading rut a little bit that happened in the middle of the month. Do make sure to check trigger warnings on that book, because it's not technically gruesome, but there are definitely scenes in there that are a bit iffy. The biggest surprise of this month was I finally found a manga series that I wanted to start reading. And of course, it's a doom and gloom series that I'm not surprised I would pick up. But the first page is definitely a testament to the flavor of the story. And then once you get past volume 1, it definitely became an actual story. And that series is Berserk. This is a hefty book, so I'm only going to hold it up for a couple of seconds. But yes, this is the one I chose. What I very much enjoyed about Guts the character is just how much he doesn't give a fuck. And I also like that we do have this little elf that is making sure our morals are still abound. He's really the audience talking to Guts, and I do enjoy that we have him because we see a lot of questionable things happening, and I'm glad Puck is there to help us. The other thing that I really love about this series is the art style. I've been really enjoying it so much. I think the action scenes have been really good, but also the quieter scenes have also been really well done. So I will be continuing reading this series. You can tell I've got some of the other volumes down there. What I realized reading manga as well, that it's very fast, and so I'm trying to prolong the series as much as possible. So I don't know if I'm going to read that many volumes per month, but I do know that if I need a break with what I'm reading, I'm definitely going to pick up the next volume in the series, and it will be my little taste refresher for reading. Okay, so now to talk about the book that I DNF'd, and it was part of the Sci-Fi Critter Club that I'm a part of that I will also link down below. It's with Fable. This coming month we are reading Children of Time. Now I already read Children of Time in November, so I'm going to be reading the second book, Children of Ruin, and watching everybody else fall in love with Children of Time. So if you're interested in that, that link will be down below. But I did not talk about this book after I finished it / DNF'd it because I was nervous about the reaction I was going to get in my comments. But since more people have talked about it and reviewed it, I probably should have posted my review. It was just, I didn't want to be the Debbie Downer, when in actuality, it's not Debbie Downing. It's just my opinion on a book. You can like it and I can hate it. It's fine. And that book is Shadow and Claw. This is a publication of the first 2 books in this series. So in the book club, we were reading both. I read the first book and I was feeling a bit iffy about continuing it. I wasn't sold on our main character, and the writing of women in it was just terrible. The main character just goes and looks at a woman and then rates her 1 through 10 and sees if she's fuckable. And honestly, I could care less about that opinion. I actually was enjoying the world building we were getting, but no, our character just had to be like that. I will say this book series was written in the 1980s, and it definitely is that. What happened to my DNF, you might ask, for the second book? Well, it's the 1980s and this is written by a white man, so I'm gonna let you decide what happens and why I would DNF it because of it, but needless to say, I don't want to read stories with those types of scenes in them, and I don't want to pick up more books like this. They just aren't for me. They are not my taste. One of the things people were trying to find out was if the author was trying to write women in this way because it's from this one man's perspective. We don't ever get anybody else's perspectives in the story, or if this was just how the author viewed women and just wrote them this poorly and abused them in the story. But yeah, I don't think it's worth it picking up this series at all. So January was a roller coaster of a month for reading for me, but I'm glad I ended up really enjoying the majority of the books I read. I am hoping February continues in that way. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that your reading in January went well as well, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!